بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. All praises be to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Peace and salutations upon our beloved Messenger Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, upon his family and his companions. My dear respected brothers, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah, all praises be to Allah who had given us the ability, the opportunity to understand the meaning of Sunnah in our last couple of sessions. The term Sunnah. So I think by now, Alhamdulillah, we will have a clear understanding what is meant by Sunnah. Sunnah basically it means the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And in the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it consists of many actions. So there are those that are compulsory, there are those that are compulsory to refrain from. You know, the fara'id, the wajibat, the haram, the makruh tahrim. Okay, so it is not just sunnah means an optional deed. Okay, so I think we learnt about that we have to make sure we are clear from that kind of mindset. Okay, so when we hear the word sunnah, we try to find out how important it is that we need to practice that act. So one of the aspect of the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is mu'ashara, social etiquettes. How we tend to behave with others, how we deal with others. Now, why is this very important? Why is it not just about how are we worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and that's it? How are we performing our prayers? How are we performing our fasting? Why is this aspect very important, that we need to make sure that we are as careful as our salah, we are as careful as our fasting, we do not miss the fasting, we do not miss our prayers. So why is that this aspect of mu'ashara, social etiquettes, is very important? It is through the teachings of our Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam we understand that even this aspect on how we deal with others will be questioned upon on the day of judgment, when our deeds will be weighed. It will not be just about our salah, our prayers, our fasting, our zakat, but this aspect of mu'ashara, social etiquettes, will also be looked upon. We may have come across many ahadith. Like, to the nearest meaning, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, once he was addressing the companions, he has mentioned that one will be performing a lot of salah, a lot of fasting, a lot of zakat or sadaqat, but on the day of judgment he will come and stand in the court of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as a bankrupt, as a bankrupt. So the Sahaba radiyallahu anhum ajma'in, whilst listening to this, a question was also posed. Now, what is meant by bankrupt over here? So the Sahaba radiyallahu anhum ajma'in replied that the one that does not have dollars and cents, dinar and dirham. During their days, the currency that was used was dinar and dirham. It's basically like our dollars and cents. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam further mentioned that is not what is meant by bankrupt on the day of judgment, but bankrupt means in the world he may have done a lot of good actions, but when he stood in the court of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there was nothing, there were no good deeds in him. So further on, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam explained in that long hadith, is because of the actions that he did towards others, that on the day of judgment he stood without no good deeds, or the scales weighed much more lesser. So that is why this aspect is something that we need to strongly look into and check whether have we caused any harm, or are we causing any harm to others. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam have said in a hadith, Al-Muslimu man salima an-nasu min lisanihi wa yadihi. A perfect Muslim is one from whose tongue and hand people are safe. Wal-mu'minu man aminahu an-nasu ala dima'ihim wa amwalihim. And a perfect believer is one from whom people's blood and wealth are secure. So in this hadith, the word tongue, lisan, the word tongue means all forms of speech, whilst the word hands, okay, wayadih, means to all sorts of actions. So one is verbally, another one is physically, any actions, it is referring to that. So this hadith of our Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam dictates that in order for one to become a perfect Muslim, a perfect believer, others must remain safe from being inconvenienced by his speech and actions, be they Muslim or non-Muslim. If people are not safe from our verbal or physical harm, we cannot be perfect Muslims. The same message is found in another hadith where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he took qasam, or he took oath. He mentioned, Wallahi la yu'min, Wallahi la yu'min, Wallahi la yu'min. 3 times he took oath upon. By Allah he is not a believer. Once again, by Allah he is not a believer. By Allah he is not a believer. He took oath 3 times. And then after being asked by the Sahaba that who is such a person that is not a believer, so Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam replied, Alladhi la ya'manu jaruhu bawa'iqahu, the one whose neighbor is not safe from his mischief. So we need to ask ourselves, are we good to our neighbors? Are we causing inconvenience to our neighbors? Sometimes it can be that we are making so much of noise and then it's causing harm to our neighbor. It's causing inconvenience to our neighbor. So we need to look into that. Sometimes we may have a lot of stuffs, items in front of the corridor. So we need to ask ourselves, is it obstructing our neighbor? So it is for this reason all our pious predecessors, who we regard as our role models, were very particular in this regard. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Sahaba and all the close servants of Allah were such that they will never hurt or harm any individual. Now, what is the consequence of harming others? Causing harm to others physically or verbally is oppression, which is haram. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in a hadith Qudsi, Ya ibadi, that, O my servants, inni haramtu dhulma ala nafsi, that indeed I have forbidden oppression for myself. So Allah is adil, He is the most fair, He is the most just. He will never oppress. وَجَعَلْتُهُ بَيْنَكُمْ مُحَرَّمًا فَلَا تُظَالِمُوا. And I have made it forbidden, I have made oppression forbidden amongst you. So do not oppress one another. O my servants, indeed I have forbidden oppression for myself, and I have made it forbidden amongst you. Thus do not oppress one another. So such people will be deprived of goodness, of khair. Okay, we are seeking goodness in our life. We are seeking blessings in our life. But when we are without goodness, when we are without blessings, we don't realize what is the cause of it. So it could be that it is due to harming others. We do not have the blessings and barakah in our life. So such people will be deprived of goodness in this world and will suffer the consequences of this sin in the hereafter. So the one who oppresses, he has no benefit at all, neither in this world nor in the hereafter. Maybe his benefit by oppressing, his nafs, his desire, his base desires will be pleased for that temporary moment. Okay, I was able to, snatch this amount of money from him. I can spend on so many other things when it comes to monetary gains, or when it comes to physical harm. Okay, now, I was able to, now he has a broken leg or broken hands. He deserves it so that he doesn't function well. For that temporary moment, we may be pleased. Our nafs will feel, due to the whispers of shaitan, we may feel that what we have done is correct. But then later on, we will have to face the consequences. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam have said, "Al-dhulmu dhulumatun yawm al-qiyamah." Oppression will be a means of many darkness on the day of Qiyamah, on the day of resurrection. Okay. So, on the day of resurrection, those who have good a'mals with them, they will see the nur, the light. They will see the glad tidings. They will see that they are moving forward towards Jannah. They will see that they are moving forward to seeing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But those who was into oppressing others, causing harm to others, they will only see darkness, hardships, even after being resurrected. So causing harm and oppression is so disliked by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that people will face severe punishment. That people will face severe punishment even for harming animals as well. Okay? If for harming animals itself, one may be able to face severe punishment, then how about harming a human being, the best of creation? Why I chose this topic today is because recently I had attended a workshop on domestic violence. So a lot of statistics were shared with regards to domestic violence in our country, in Singapore. So it's something that we need to look into, something we need to remember, that because of us, okay, others shouldn't be the victims of domestic violence. And if we know anyone suffering from domestic violence, we should try to assist that person. Yeah, we should try to, because this is not what Islam teaches. Islam definitely forbids domestic violence because it's a form of oppression. So sadly, in our community as well, there are a lot of cases of domestic violence. So firstly, we need to ensure that we are not involved in it. Secondly, if we know that anyone is being a victim or is the cause of domestic violence, then we should try to advise that person accordingly. In a hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he has mentioned that a woman was punished due to a cat which she had imprisoned until it died. She subsequently entered the fire of Jahannam because of it. So even if we have pets, we need to make sure that we are giving its rights. Whilst keeping it captive, she did not feed it. Whilst keeping the cats at home, she did not give food, nor give it anything to drink. did not give water as well. Nor did she let it free to eat from the vermin of the earth. So she did not give some freedom to the cat. So due to this, okay, she entered, or she will be thrown into the fire of Jahannam. On the other hand, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has also mentioned in another hadith that a dog was circling a well and was close to dying due to thirst. It's a very famous hadith. When a prostitute from the Banu Israel saw it, she took off her leather her socks, and then, collected some water in it and gave to the thirsty dog. So due to this good deed, her sins of being improper in her actions, she was forgiven. Why? She showed compassion towards an animal. So these two hadith demonstrate how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala becomes angry upon acts of cruelty and oppression, whilst on the other hand, He becomes pleased with the act of showing compassion to His creation. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Wallahu la yuhibbul zalimin, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not like those who oppress. And Inna Allaha yuhibbul muqsitin, indeed Allah loves those who are just. So may we become those who are just upon ourselves. We do not transgress upon ourselves and also others. Now what we need to do, okay, so after this we will end inshallah. What we need to do when it comes to harming others, it has become evident from the above that oppression is a major sin. So we should not take it that it's a minor thing. It's a major sin from the kaba'ir that attracts the wrath, the anger and displeasure of Allah. Therefore, we should adhere to the following guidelines to save ourselves and those around us from this grave sin. Okay, what are the guidelines? Number one, we need to monitor ourselves and make an active practice to ensure that we never harm or inconvenience anybody. Number one, we need to monitor ourselves and make an active practice to ensure that we never harm or inconvenience anybody. I think simple steps, like for example, before we intend to visit someone whom we know, our relative or anyone, some will have this habit of just standing at the doorstep without informing. So one of the things that we can do is to basically, because we never know what is the situation inside the house. Okay, it could be that people are sleeping, taking some rest. So one of the steps that we can take is we ask permission that, we are about to come and give you a visit. We want to have some silatul rahim. So can we come down? Okay. And if we happen to just go there, this is for a visit. Okay, but if we happen to just go there with the intention of saying some good words, then there are some etiquettes to it as well. That we try knocking the door once, twice, maximum thrice. If there are no answer, then we return back. Okay, so it doesn't mean that at all times we need to check whether the person is at home or not. Sometimes we want to send a message across, we will want to knock on the door and check if the person is inside or not, and invite the person towards goodness. That is permissible as long as it doesn't cause inconvenience to the other person. Secondly, at the end of each day, we should assess ourselves to see whether we have made any mistake in this regard. So the first thing is we need to monitor. Basically, before we take any action, we need to ask ourselves, will this act harm others or not? Secondly, after the end of the day, we need to assess, because sometimes out of overwhelming of nafs, ignorance, we may have done it. So that is why the second guideline is, end of the day, we should assess ourselves to see whether we have made any mistake in this regard. Did we hurt anyone? Did we unthoughtfully cause harm to anyone, or mention something to anyone that may have hurt the person's feelings? So number 3 is, if we realize that we have made a mistake and have hurt someone, Muslim or non-Muslim, okay, Muslim or non-Muslim, because in a hadith Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentions man salima an-nas. An-nas is mentioned, mankind is mentioned. So we must make tawbah and seek forgiveness from the individual too. So we put down our arrogance, we put down our ego, and then we seek forgiveness. In order, respected Sheikh will mention that in order to put down our ego, in order to put down our arrogance, we need to remember this hadith, a very nice hadith. Man tawada'a lillah rafa'ahu Allah, that whoever humbles himself for the sake of Allah, on that day when we want that our status is very high, we want the highest level of Jannah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will raise us to that level. Rafa'ahu Allah, Allah will raise our status on the day of judgment. So I mean this is the hadith that I usually use, when times of challenges come, then this is the hadith I always remember, because this is the hadith that my respected Sheikh have taught, that to remember this hadith, because it's not easy obviously to bring down one's arrogance, one's ego, okay, but if you want our hereafter, our final destiny to be at a high status, then this is what we need to do, especially when we ourselves have done a mistake. We shouldn't have arrogance or ego, especially when it's towards our wife, towards our children. We need to humble ourselves and realize that we have done a mistake and seek forgiveness. So seeking forgiveness from others is heavy upon the nafs. Hence, if we compel ourselves to ask forgiveness every time we hurt somebody, we will think twice before hurting someone again. So asking for forgiveness will act as a deterrent from harming others in the future. So this is another thing that respected Sheikh have mentioned over here. So when seeking forgiveness from others, we will have some shame that we shouldn't be seeking forgiveness from him again. So respected Sheikh mentions that by seeking forgiveness, it will act as a deterrent. It will stop us from harming others again in the future. Okay, guideline number 4, along with looking after ourselves, we should look after those around us too. This can be in the form of protecting someone from being oppressed, or by preventing someone from oppressing others. So like I shared earlier on, okay, with regards to domestic violence, we need to, if we are not into it, we need to ensure that others are also, protected and safe from it. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam have mentioned, unsur akhaka zaliman aw madluman, help your brother, be he an oppressor or oppressed. Unsur akhaka zaliman aw madluman, help your brother, be he an oppressor or oppressed. Sometimes it is a norm in the society that we always approach the oppressed one. We always approach the oppressed one and tell them that, be patient, have sabr, have perseverance, inshallah Allah will reward you. Yes, that one part is done. But how about approaching the oppressor, the one who is oppressing others? This is something that is not being done on a normal basis. When it comes to the oppressor, everyone thinks about what if, because the person may have a good relationship with the other person. So this thought may come that what if I go and tell that person, the oppressor, he might not keep in touch with me anymore. Maybe there's a business dealing. So if I go and tell this person, he might not have business dealings with me anymore. But everything has to be done with hikmah. When Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam have taught us to also approach the oppressor because he is in trouble. One who's oppressing, he is in trouble as well in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if we have true feelings for that person, then we need to approach obviously with hikmah, with wisdom. That, okay, I have a very good relationship with you, we have a long business relationship with you, but this act of yours, my brother, is something that is not liked by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, but there's a way to do this. Give him some advice, give him some guidelines. By doing that, then we have followed the instruction of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Our Sahaba radiyallahu anhu asked, Ya Rasulullah, unsuruhu idha kana madhluman, ara'ayta in kana dhaliman, kayfa ansuruhu? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I can help when he is being oppressed. To go and help the oppressed one is much more easier by giving some financial assistance, advice, food, okay? But if he is the oppressor, how can I help him? You see? So there can be a question in our mind. How can we help the oppressor? So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned, tahjizuhu aw tamna'uhu, prevent him from oppressing. Min al-dhulmi fa inna dhalika nasruh, for indeed that is helping him. If we know a person who is oppressing his wife, who is oppressing his children, if we know and we have come across such a person, so we try to advise that person. We try to advise. If we do not know how to advise, then we seek some advices from the experts, that I know this person who is into this kind of violence. How can I advise? What shall I tell him? Okay, so everything has to be done with hikmah, with wisdom. So if we see our relatives, siblings, friends and those around us doing something that will harm an innocent person, we should try to make them understand. We should explain to them that the person they intend to harm is innocent. Harming is wrong and can never be justified. Okay? Can never be justified. The fifth guideline, if a noble person happens to harm us, at times due to anger, a noble person, we know for sure that that person is a righteous person, is a very good person, okay, then we should forgive him. We should forgive him. Forgiving a noble person normally makes him feel embarrassed and regretful. He will learn from his mistake and not harm anybody in the future. In such a case, the best thing to do is forgive that person. Allah will reward us immensely if we forgive. So here we need to also understand that at times what we may have understood as noble person is someone who is older than us. Someone who is older than us, someone who is older in age or more experience, especially, mainly the age factor. Then this person is a noble person, this person is a righteous person. Sadly, it could be how we have been brought up, that anyone who is older, no matter what, give respect, give honor. That's how majority of us have been brought up. But at the same time, we need to ensure that we do not become a victim of bullying. Sometimes we can become a victim of such act. So here, respected Sheikh mentioned noble, righteousness, meaning criteria is taqwa. The person must be right in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So now when it comes to children and parents relationship as well, now if the father or the mother thinks that we are, older in age, no matter what, we are right, we have we have all the rights to do whatever we want upon our children, and at times we do not fulfill the rights of our children, we should not think like that. This is a form of oppression as well. Okay, so here it is mentioned noble. Sometimes we may have been brought up by saying that, even whatever parents say, one has to follow, one has to abide. Even when it comes to disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, have to abide. No. So this is a bit of ignorance or lack of knowledge. What's important is, firstly, taqwa. We should be right in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even as parents. So if we know that our parents, our siblings, our elder siblings, they are very noble, righteous, but out of anger, they maybe hit us or scolded us, then what respected Sheikh is mentioning here is that we should forgive that person. Okay. So however, if the person is not a righteous person, then forgiving could make him even more arrogant. Okay. Forgiving can be, by seeking forgiveness, can make him more arrogant. He will most likely take advantage of a good character. This happens a lot. So this is basically taking advantage, means is to bully. One has good character and to take advantage of that good character in a wrong manner. So if the circumstances are such that forgiving the person or group will lead them to continue the habit of harming others, then we should take measures to ensure that they do not harm anybody else by way of referring them to the authorities and police. Okay. So one important point we also need to understand here, respected Sheikh never mentioned do not talk to them or ignore them. Ignore means if they are to say salam, we ignore. That's not the way. What's important is that we should not sever ties. Sometimes our own siblings can be a cause of harm to us, can be harming us. But does that mean we sever ties? No, we don't sever ties. We don't sever ties. When circumstances come, situation comes, salamun alaykum, we say the salam, la nabtaghil jahil. Further on, you may refrain from having other conversations. But if he is to say salam, we reply. Or if we are to say salam, we want to say salam first. We want to gain more reward, we want to say salam first, also no issues. And whether the person replies or not, doesn't matter. Okay, but what's important in our thing is that in our heart, we should not sever ties and say that I'm not going to talk to him forever. Okay? We cannot have this thought in our mind. I'm not going to talk to him forever. That's it. No more relationship with him. We cannot have this thought in our mind. Finally, the final guideline, number 6. In no circumstance should we ever take the law into our own hands. We must use the right channels to bring justice and prevent oppression. So in this, I would like to highlight, sometimes the Quranic verses can be wrongly interpreted. For example, it comes in a hadith, Muru awladakum bis salati wahum sab'in, aw kama qala Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, that instruct your children with regards to salah at the age of 7. Okay, and wadribuhum, the next word that is being used, wadribuhum, beat them if they do not pray at the age of 10. So now this thing here, this word here, we need to understand this term correctly. We cannot just claim and beat our children anyhow and say that, oh, it's mentioned in the hadith, wadribuhum, beat them if they do not pray. Okay, so we need to be careful. We cannot go and tell the authorities this is what is mentioned in the hadith, so that's why I'm beating them. No. Okay, so there's a way as well to beat. There's a way to give punishment. Okay, so in the hadith it's mentioned wadribuhum, beat them at the age of 10 if they are not performing the salah. Even in our Islamic guidelines, there's a way to do that. There shouldn't be any scars, any wound. So it's also important to understand that somebody harming us does not legitimize harming those people who are associated to him, as they are innocent and have not caused any harm to us. Just like to end with a hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, La darara wa la dirar. Do not cause harm and do not return harm. You don't cause harm to others. And let's say if someone has caused harm to you, do not cause the same harm back. Okay. Man dara, because whoever harms others, darrahullah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will harm that person. Leave it to Allah. Someone has harmed us, just leave it to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to take that action upon that person. Waman shaqa, and whoever is harsh, shaqallahu alayhi. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be harsh on that person. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala first of all give me and all of us the ability to instill good characters, good akhlaq within ourselves. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the ability to emulate our beloved Prophet Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, the Sahabas, the Tabi'in, the Tabi'in. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive all our shortcomings and grant us the ability to always have this fikr or the concern at every moment of our life. Before we do anything, we ask ourselves whether we are doing the right thing for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or not. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa salatu wa salamu ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursaleen. Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Allahumma faqihna fi ad-din wa 'allimna al-Qur'an wa habbibna ila an-nas ya arhamar rahimin. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. اللهم اجعلنا من عبادك الصالحين والمتقين والمحسنين يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم اعطنا جنة الفردوس يا أرحم الراحمين. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. وصلى الله تعالى وسلم على خير خلقه سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. تقبل الله منا. سبحان الله بحمده سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين. الحمد لله. جزاكم الله خير والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.